Okay, well, we've talked a lot about the Green Deal itself, and we've seen the complexities of that. I think it's very important, though, with the Green Deal, to put it in context. It doesn't stand on its own. You really need to look at it in the context of a whole range of other initiatives and policies that are coming into place, some are already in place, which, from the point of view of a local area or a social landlord or a community, the responsibility has been pushed down and down. This is all about localism. It's been pushed down and down for you to actually integrate all of those schemes into a coherent whole that makes sense for you. So we've got to get away from thinking the Green Deal is a panacea that's going to solve everyone's problem, or that renewable heat incentive or feed-in tariffs are. We've got to look at those all together in the context of each individual building. I think that's actually good news, because I'm a great fan of local responsibility for sensible technical activity in buildings. So let's just talk about some of those other incentives very briefly. What have we got? We've got feed-in tariffs, which have been in the news a lot recently. We've got renewable heat incentive. We've got energy company obligation, which is very important to get your mind around because there's a lot of money involved in that. And then we've got other things that local authorities and social landlords can do, different, more self-financing for housing now, change in the planning system, and powers of local authorities to run local energy companies and energy services companies are growing as well. So we could begin to think of the Green Deal being provided, for example, in a local community of some size, maybe a city as big as Bristol or Birmingham or Leeds, through an energy services company which does Green Deal as one of a portfolio of things. It might do solar PV projects as well. It might do biomass projects funded by renewable heat incentive. It might do development. It might take income from developments being done in the city where people have to offset carbon emissions from new build by investing in local low-carbon energy projects. And that's a much more interesting picture for a local authority than worrying about how it deals specifically and only with the Green Deal. And those things are becoming viable. I think one of the great, the sadnesses for me about the recent hoopla around the feed-in tariffs is the way the government still seem to be seeing all these things in silos. Feed-in tariffs, for solar PV in particular, is a great way for local communities to get involved in energy, which is simple, easy to understand, and begins to put in place the kind of structures where you can manage the Green Deal and you can manage these other kind of more complex projects effectively. So I hope we come back to that kind of world relatively quickly. So I think you probably all know what feed-in tariffs are, but just very briefly, they give you a guaranteed revenue per green kilowatt hour generated from your microgeneration, be it a wind turbine or solar panel or whatever, and that can be put into a pot potentially for investing in retrofit. Renewable heat incentive, very similar, but not yet defined for domestic properties. The government's idea is that will be defined for October, hopefully, and then that will be an income stream again for organisations maybe providing green deals as well, where they get income based on the green kilowatt hours of heat provided by a biomass boiler or solar thermal system or similar. We've then got ECO, which I've touched on already. This replaces CERT and CESP, which have been the schemes for many years where energy companies are required to provide subsidised insulation and similar measures, and they add the cost onto everyone's electricity bills. Exactly the same mechanism as feed-in tariffs, but with less budget pressure. And the budget for ECO will be £1.3 billion a year, so it's quite a lot of money, although it's slightly less than CESP and CERT. The key innovations of ECO are this, changes from certain CESP are this focus on affordable warmth, so vulnerable households, and solid wall insulation, so very specific target areas. The fact that the affordable warmth is currently excluded from social landlords, so you can't access that. You can only access the solid wall insulation aspect of ECO. And that's causing a lot of controversy, and organisations like the National Housing Federation are lobbying very hard to allow social landlords to access the affordable warmth aspect of ECO again. The other key innovation is a brokerage mechanism. So currently certain CESP are controlled entirely by the utility companies, which has the virtue of simplicity. It has the very significant disbenefit, in my view, of giving control of the insulation market to 6 very large utilities who naturally operate in a way which makes economic sense for them. insulation, low carbon technologies are naturally very competitive markets. They could be very innovative. If you open it up to large numbers of firms, you'll get better outcomes. Eco may do that because it's setting up a brokerage mechanism whereby anybody can bid in to invest money in solid wall insulation, essentially, or access Eco, without having to go through an intermediary of a utility company who might wish to attach strings and has their own objectives. So I do think local authorities should see this plethora of initiatives and schemes as an opportunity, not as a source of further hassle, because I think they're naturally the best people to pull these things together in a local area. They understand the policy world, they have the political power to make things happen and to connect with customers across their area, and they do understand their local areas as well. So I think we'll see a lot more activity in the next 4 or 5 years in the area of local authority, energy services companies and Green Deal providers. But the jury is still out because we don't know enough detail yet.